Welcome to Africa Media Australia. I'm Clash Sharadi. Welcome to Afroshine Live. This is a new show where we talk about professional and business excellence. We talk about leadership. We talk about education, all with a focus on African Australian community. We want this show to be interactive. So if you watch this and you want to ask a question or you want to make a comment, it's all live on Facebook, live on YouTube. We want you to do that. Ask questions. If you want to do that on video, we can also enable that. Just send us an SMS. We'll send you the link, and you can ask our guest questions or even myself. And tonight we're talking about entrepreneurship. I have with me Bunmi Ajayi. Bunmi, how are you today?
I'm very well, Clyde. Thank you
All
for
right.
having
I'm
me
going to
on the
ask you to
show.
introduce yourself a little bit so our audience will know a bit more about yourself. I know there are a lot of people who watch AMA who know you, but many more may not.
All right, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on the show, and I just want to appreciate what you're doing with this medium because I think we do need to showcase some of these things every now and again, particularly within our community. So, my name is Bunmi Ajayi, as you can see on the screen, I suppose, and came here about some 21 years ago,
Hmm.
originally from Nigeria. Obviously now I'm Australian as well. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a family man, a wife. I mean, with one wife, obviously, with
Hmm.
three children, and I'm involved very heavily in the community. My faith also is one of the things that runs through everything that I do. So, a man of many parts, I would say. So, involved with my faith, my family, my community, and also in business. So, I think that kind of sets the stage for tonight.
Thank you very much, Bumina. We're talking today about entrepreneurship, especially the mindset aspect of it. And I know you've been in business for quite some time, and you've won many awards, and you run a business that deals with insurance brokerage. I assume. Tell us a bit more about what you do in business.
Um, Insurance broking is my main forte, but that's not all I do when it comes to business. I've got
Hmm.
a few other streams. I run um, a service office apartment. Also, we have my wife and I. We have a boutique. We have a non-for-profit, and a few of those other things. So, but insurance broking is my profession. I've been in it for 30 odd years now, and
Hmm.
both internationally in Nigeria and even here in Australia. So started after uni in 1989 and worked for a couple of years and decided to venture into business even back in Nigeria to start my own company. I started at in partnership and that grew to multiple branches and a few staff. And in 99, when I migrated here, also went into insurance, worked for a few years, and then haven't tasted that entrepreneurship journey. It was hard not to get back into it. And about 15, 14 years ago, I, um, started this company, Megalines Insurance, and that's what I've done ever since.
Well, they say business and entrepreneurship is largely a mindset game. Do you agree? If so, tell us a bit more about that.
Um, my response to that is a yes and a no.
Hmm.
Obviously, you need to have a certain mindset to do anything in life because you can only act to the extent of your belief, and
Hmm.
your belief can only take you to the extent of what you know, because it's your knowledge that informs your belief, and it's your belief that informs your activities. But having said that, belief alone or a mindset alone, it's not enough. Business, it's a tough game. It's rewarding, but it's a tough game. There's a whole lot of things that you need to do that. So I would say you need both a mindset that is an entrepreneurship mindset, a mindset of being prepared, a mindset of having a purpose, a mindset of knowing what it would take in the whole journey, being prepared to swim upstream sometimes, and just to be resilient and to have all of those things that you need, like a business acumen, to go through that. So once you have that, then with a whole lot of experience, ability to learn, and other things, then you can step out in business.
Well, what do you think is the? I know that there are a lot of people who are professionals and who may be thinking of going into business, but they hesitate a lot. They don't want to take that step. Why do you think so many people hesitate to make that step out of whatever job, whatever profession they may have into actually running their own business?
Well, there could be a lot of reasons, Clyde, that we could explain on this. The first, you would think, is just fair. People are they don't want to leave certainty for uncertainty, because the business terrain is very uncertain. You don't know what is out there. But
Mm-hmm.
so is everything. Even when you have a job, you don't know if you're going to be laid off tomorrow, because there's no certainty in life, in anything really. I mean, even the
Mm.
current coronavirus tells us that, because we all thought, okay, everything was hunky dory, but now suddenly we got this. So I would think you need to be a risk taker, because there is, in anything, there is that bit of risk, but then it's going to be a calculated risk. So that's one of the reasons of fear of leaving certainty for uncertainty. They would rather have the comfort of a steady stream of income than stepping out and hoping that they might hit it and make something bigger than they currently have. The other could be a life choice, a lifestyle choice. They might feel, well, they've got a family, they're okay, and there's no need for them to scuttle the boat, if you like. They just want to
Mm.
coast along. Others might just not feel they can handle the stress that business brings. And so there's a whole lot of reasons, but I think the bulk of it is just the first step, the fear of, what is this going to be? Am I going to succeed? Or some might even think they're not cut out for business. They think maybe some people are cut out for it and others
Mm.
are not cut out for it. Some don't know, what business am I going into? So there's a
Mm.
whole lot of reasons why people don't take that step and venture into business.
What led you, particularly in your own story, what led you to go into business? Were you always confident that that's the way you had to go, or was it something that ticked or clicked that led you to go into business?
Yes. I was never always confident. Even now, I still have my moments where you're like, you just got to rely on, because in life, there's certain factors that you cannot control, no matter how confident you feel you are. So you got to give that allowance for that. I grew up in a family where we didn't have a lot. We didn't lack, but we didn't have a whole lot. I remember in my secondary school days, I would have some of my friends. They usually summer in the UK, they would go on holidays, they come back and all that. So I wasn't in that class. I was, just the average, the middle class. I wasn't even the upper middle class. We're just down there somehow. So I determined at that point that I wanted to obviously be to have something better. I wanted to be comfortable. I didn't really start out to say, look, I want to be rich or whatever, but I wanted to be comfortable. Until I realized that in order for you to be comfortable, you've got to be rich. And then I was now one day I was looking at the list of the 100 richest people in the world, and I
Mm.
realized that not one of them is an employee. They're all business people, entrepreneurs. Just name it: Warren Buffett and Bill Gates and all of that. So that was back then, anyway. So that was when I determined that if I was going to get to the point that I wanted to just be able to have at least enough and also to be able to give back, then I think business is the way to go. So that sowed a seed in me that being an employee just for me at that stage was not an option if I could handle it. Of course, I didn't think I was cut out for that too. And then one thing led to the other. It's a long story. By divine orchestration, I ventured into my first business. Even I would think I started out as an accidental entrepreneur in my first business, and
Mm.
that was what set me on the fire. But sometimes people say that you attract what you believe or what you hope for. So because I had that mindset, like we talked about before, the mindset is important, but it's not enough. That I wanted to go into that, and then the opportunity came. I found myself that I was opportunity ready, because if you didn't have that mindset to start with, you could even
Mm,
have that opportunity. You either don't recognize it, or you're not opportunity ready to grab it.
absolutely. And they say that the first couple of years in business are the hardest one. Was that the case for you as well?
I think it differs from person to person. My first 2 years was hard because I expected it to be hard. I think it depends on the expectation, how you manage your expectation. As a matter of fact, when I was venturing, I gave myself first 3 years that, if I could survive the first 3 years, then I should be fine. So when things were uphill and it was tough and everything, I kept going because I expected it. So a lot of people, if you're going into business, don't go with the mindset that you want to don't go with a hunter mentality, if I have to put it that way. You want to go
Mm,
with a cultivating or a farming mentality. You want to nourish it, you want to massage it, you want to tend it, and just do a whole lot of things. And it takes time for it to really grow to the point that you can really rest. You're never going to rest, but you can say yes. You've kind of crossed that barrier, and you're here to stay. So certainly, it won't be easy in the first 2 years or even the first 3 years. It all depends on the business itself. Some business you can start, and within 6 months, if it's something you're buying or importing and selling, you could begin to get some rewards. Some, it takes a while. So I wouldn't really put it in a case of it takes 2 years or 3 years or whatever. But the important thing is to know that when you start out, it's not going to be easy, and you got to be prepared for that. And that's one of the things that I would advise whoever is going into it: be prepared that in the early stages, in the short term, no matter, however that term is, 2 years for some, 3 years, you should expect some opposition, some pain, some strain, but keep going, because at the end of the day, there is also gain and there is a reward waiting for you.
now, let me just remind those who are watching live, if you have questions, if you have comments, please, we encourage you to put your comments on the live feed. But also, if you want to be able to do that on video, we can bring you into the studio, and you can actually ask your questions or make a comment on video. So we encourage you to share as well as you are watching. Now, Bumi, there are many Africans now going into business, but the number is still low. And I'm talking about the African Australian context here. The number is still pretty low. Why do you think that is the case?
Yeah, I know there's a few going into business, and but when you put it into perspective, when you look at the fact that I think I don't have the current figure, but I think as at 2016 or so, we had just under 400,000 Africans in Australia, according to the Bureau of Statistics,
It's more than
compared to,
400,000 now.
yeah, definitely more than
Yeah,
that now.
yeah,
But back then it was around 400, then compared
yeah,
to about 24 million
yeah.
in the country. So that's just less than 2%. So if
Mm-hmm,
the growth rate is at that rate, then you will find that I'm sure it's more than 2% now. We're probably growing at a higher rate than the population, which is a good thing to see. But if we look at it, it's not a bad thing. Like you said, there are more people getting into it now. And I think a show like this, and even the support of each other, would help to even increase that number. But I wouldn't think it's way beyond what you see in other parts of the world, even in America as well. You find that once the Africans in this country, they're still one of the newer races to come into this into Australia. You've got the Asians and the Chinese; they've kind of come, so they've got a whole lot of time to be able to get themselves together, because let's not forget that coming into a new environment creates some level of shock. You got to
mm,
come in, you got to settle in first, and for you to go into business, especially if you want to be able to combine that with your family and a whole lot of things, even understanding the system in the country, how things work and all, it takes a while. So
mm.
a lot of credit to those who have jumped in and are doing their businesses even right now. But I see that even growing further.
Now, what do you think should be done to even encourage entrepreneurship more within our communities?
I think one of the things, it's one, education is key. People need to
Hmm.
know the advantage of business and entrepreneurship. Like I said before, the reason I went into this way back was I had a mindset that one day, I didn't know when that day was going to come, that one day I was going to run my own business, because I looked at it and said, look, I wanted to have a certain level of comfort. I didn't really want to be rich. I wanted to be comfortable, but I realized that in order for you to be comfortable, you got to be rich, and that was the thing. And and so that was what took me on that journey of, okay, at the next opportunity, I'll go into that. So when people know the advantage of going into business, knowing that you, for the sort of lifestyle you want, and also if you want to make contribution to things that you feel strongly about in society and be able to give back, and even if you want to give back to things in Africa, or give back to people here, the less privileged, and all the things that you want to do, you cannot, really be able to do that meaningfully and to the extent you should if you're just working in a paid employment. So when
Now,
people realize that, then it gives them the impetus to go and just, venture and do that. And one should not allow the fear of failure to hold them from the probability of success, because it's always going to be that balance to really be able to say, look, if you step out, if it doesn't work today, it doesn't mean you have failed. It just means you've learned one way not to do it. It means that you can have this directed to do. You got to pick up yourself and try.
now we also see quite a lot of people who actually go into business, but they soon crash out of it. They don't go far. Is it? I mean, obviously, we know even in Australia, in the broader population, not many businesses survive after 2 years. A lot of them die, the small businesses, but that rate is even higher in our communities. In your experience, and that actually also applies in many other communities as well. What do you think is the reason why many of the small businesses that are being created die too soon?
Well, I think it goes to not really, there's certain things that needs to be in place before you go into business, from my experience and
Mhm.
from speaking to people. First of all, we don't have enough mentors in our community,
Mm,
because in life you either learn from mistakes or learn from mentors, I believe. So we don't have enough mentors, and people, some of those wanting to start out, they just go into it without doing the preparation. Some of them have no passion into it. Some of them don't understand, they don't count the cost of what it takes to really make a success of it. So that's why when a small opposition comes, the tendency for them to fold up. So
mm,
what I would think is a case where people would do, they know that any business, you need to have a passion. You need to know the purpose. Why are you going into business? Is it just because you want to make money? That's not enough. And do you know what it takes to run a
mm,
successful business in terms of the people, in terms of process, in terms of your product? Are you focusing on a particular market? Do you know enough of that industry you're going into? A lot of people don't do that homework well to really understand that you need a whole lot of knowledge in that industry. You need to do your homework there. The other thing is, a lot of some of our people, they're good at what they do. They might be a good accountant or good at other things, and they just quickly think because they're good at as a professional, then they can run a business. It's
mm,
usually a mistake that I see people do, because they're two different things. Running a business takes, as a matter of fact, when you begin to be a good entrepreneur, you need to get to a point where you work yourself out of a job. You need to work yourself out of a job. That's when you really become a good entrepreneur. If not, you're still a self-employed person, rather than being an entrepreneur or a business person. So some of them go into it because they know they're good at what they do. They're very good at as an accountant or any of those professions, and then they go and start a business. Starting a business goes beyond just being a technocrat. You got to know how to handle people. You got to be a good salesperson. Your marketing and branding and all of that has got to be good. Some people cannot sell what they're good at. And that's a
Mm,
problem because you cannot be a good business person if you cannot convince and sell what you've got to offer, because people need to be able to understand and appreciate what you've got to offer. The other thing is that people, you got to make sure that you're giving people what people want to buy.
mm,
An example is footballers may just want to play football because they love the game, but those who come to watch them are not coming to see you just play because you love the game. They want to see goals. So you got
mhm.
to make sure that what you're selling aligns with what people want to buy. So sometimes there's a disconnect in that. So if you don't tick all those boxes and you just venture into business, then you're setting up yourself for failure. The other reason I see is there is this bandwagon effect, whereby when they see someone going into a particular line of business, you see the whole community going into it to say, yes, I can do it as well.
Mm.
That's a wrong motive to go into business. You got to go into something that you're passionate about, not because others are going into it, because you believe in it. You got to own it. You got to have a vision, because when it is tough, it is that belief that will keep you going. And I need to add as well, just in my case, it's different from other people. In my case, my faith has been a very integral part of my business journey as well. So I cannot underestimate it. As a matter of fact, that's number one, because you got to have something that you don't have control over. Once you have done all you can, there's other factors you have no control over. And, whatever it is for you, I think you need to bring that into the picture as well.
So when you say your faith in your specific case has been quite um,
Yeah, I'm
important
a Christian,
in
and I'm a kingdom entrepreneur, which means that I run a business that honors and glorifies God, that adds values to people and delivers a profit. So that's the way I define that. So for others, it might be different, but whatever it is, I think we all need to know that there is a spiritual dimension to everything that we do and we see.
and maybe while we're talking about faith, and I know there's a lot of Africans, there's a big portion of the African population in Australia and in the continent that are that have faith, either it's Christianity or any other religion. Uh, how do you see that connect that interconnection between faith and business? Sometimes it could be something good because it may push people to do things and believe that they will succeed, but there may also be an element of well, the relationship with money and building wealth. But do you see that playing any role in the African psyche?
Yes, it could, and I think it probably does, as a matter of fact. What you believe about money will inform how you respond to business. It will also inform your belief and value system when it comes to the area of business and making money. I believe money is neutral
Mm.
in itself. It's only a tool, so it's not something you really want to, as long as you don't let it master you. I mean, from my own standpoint, from my religion, the Bible tells us that the love of money is the root of all evil. It doesn't say that money is; it said the love of it, when you love it too much. But having said that, money is also very important. Money, will allow you to do a whole lot of things. Will allow you to even spread the gospel. Will allow you to be able to help the poor. Will allow you to be able to fulfill your purpose. So you got to look at it into perspective. It's like technology. Technology is neutral. It's neither good nor bad. It's what you use with it that determines the value of it. So that would be the way I would approach it. And as long as you don't allow it to control you, it's not the be and end all of everything, but it's really very important. Someone said the other day, which was a bit of a joke, he said, "Oh, money is not everything, but it's up there with oxygen." So it's yeah, so it's very important. But as long as you know it's only a tool to use for the greater good.
Well, let's talk about business in terms of how the African diaspora could potentially, or maybe already actually, working with African governments back in the continent of Africa. Because I see a lot of opportunity, at least in theory, to develop business between Australia, or the diaspora in general and the African continent. But the mechanics of it doesn't seem to be working quite well in many countries between the diaspora and back in the in Africa. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I've seen cases of people who have gone back. I've got a couple of friends in America who they've gone back to help
Mm-hmm.
because a few years ago there was this massive drive that we need to get back and help the continent and give back what we have. And some have gone back to help, and after a few months, some maybe a couple of years, they've had to return because not a lot is being put in place in
Mm,
terms of the structure back at home. I think that's the thing. It's like if there's something wrong with food, the example I give, if there's something wrong with the food, um, I mean, if the cooker is broken, you can change the chef how many times you like. The food will always still have something wrong with it because
mm,
it is a systemic problem that we have. When you
mm,
get back home, maybe the infrastructure is faulty, you can't get things done quickly. There's a lot of red tape and all of that thing happening. The electricity, the roads, and just the basic things that we take for granted, they're not in place. Then you
mm,
begin to think, is it really worth it? Even the cost of production, eats so much deep into your profitability. You've done all your business plan and everything, but when you factor all of that into it, however hard or however well you want to give back and be able to survive there, you find that it's just very, very tough. So
mm,
I think if the government back home, if they're really wanting the diaspora population to migrate back or to come back, or even if not permanently, but at least to be able to make contribution, I think certain basic things needs to be put in place first. I think that's where the disconnect is, and I think when you look at it, if we're able to get it from that point of view, then we have a lot of hope because I think the hope of the African nations, I think, lies largely, not all, but largely within what we have in the Africans in diaspora.
mm. Absolutely. But what would you recommend, especially for people in the diaspora who may not necessarily want to go back to live in Africa, but they would welcome some sort of, you call it a structure, where it's easy to invest in money and trust that the money invested will be taken care of, and you may have to travel back and forth a couple of times, at least in the initial phase, but you know that there is something there that you can have visibility on, and that is working. Uh, do you see that sort of model working at all?
Uh, it depends on what it is. I mean, if we're talking of maybe buying shares over there or something, that's a different thing. You don't have to be there. It's passive. You don't need the human capital to be involved. But when you need to have the personal accession, which means you need to be involved or somebody needs to be involved, then the issue of trust really comes in. And that's always been a problem, I find. A lot of people have tried to do things there, maybe to have a transport company running while they're here and a whole lot of things. But it's really just hard if you're not on the ground. Because you are the visionary, and even here, it's not even just back home in Africa. Even here, if you are the visionary, because a good leader needs to see things that others don't see, and you need to
Mm,
see things ahead of others and see things before others see. So you've got the vision. So when there's a bend in the vision that needs the visionary to be able to regroup and rethink and change and make course correction, those on the ground may not be able to do the same thing. And timing is everything. So you find that if it works at all, it probably will only work for a little while unless you have the flexibility of being able to shuttle, maybe on a monthly basis or something, so that your presence is still very much there.
I
That
got a
that's
question.
yes.
Yep, I got a question from a member of the audience. Joshua is asking, what do you think? I mean, why do you reckon other entrepreneurs flourish despite that disconnect or issues of, I mean, the issues of infrastructure and everything else that you've mentioned there, but there are still some entrepreneurs, African or non-African, who are still able to successfully do business back in the home country. How would you explain that?
Well, like I said before, it depends on the business. It depends on the business. Is the Joshua? I know there's a few people who have done some things, but when you look at the numbers, bear in mind now there is in everything there's always going to be exceptions. So each case has to be looked at on its own merit. One, it depends on the business.
Mm,
If it's an IT business, for instance, I think that should be able to survive anyway because it's all online. You can set something in place, software development, and all of that. All of that is good. But you
mm,
find majority of the businesses that I think people want to go and do that needs the human capital, that needs
mm-hmm,
the infrastructure. You need logistic to move things around. There's time sensitive. Some of the things could be perishable, like maybe in the agriculture and produce and all of that. Then you find that you have a lot of obstacles that will come your way. So, of course, there will be exceptions to that, but unless you're really on the ground and you know how to, you've been on the ground and you're there and you have a lot of connections in high places, as you know, then you can move things around. But if you're just going with wanting to do, the right things and everything, then it's really, really hard because there's a lot of red tape that will come your way. There's a lot of hoops you've got to cross through to be able to achieve that. So it's not impossible, but it's very difficult.
Now, Africans have been coming in Australia en masse for over the last 30 years. When do you think we'll see our first African multimillionaire? We know nowadays there are a lot of millionaires because you can buy, if you have two houses, you already have a million. But when we used to say millionaire with lots of millions, multi-millionaires in Australia, when do you think we can expect to see one? Or maybe there are some there that we don't know.
Exactly. I was going to say that. How do you know they're not anymore? Because they're not going to tell you. you know, um, you know. I think riches will talk, but wealth will whisper. If you know what I
Mm,
mean. So it's hard to really know when you talk of someone being a millionaire or something. You're talking of their net worth. Maybe they have that much money in the bank account,
mm,
net worth. So after deducting the debts and liabilities and all of that. So it would
mm,
come. It will come. We shouldn't be in a hurry. It will come. I'm sure if we don't have one now, we're probably close to having that, and we'll probably even maybe have some on that threshold. Who knows? But it will definitely come, and I think the vehicle to make that possible will have to be the vehicle of business and entrepreneurship.
mm,
It will have to be, and that's why we cannot underscore the value and the benefit of the economic value and worth of a community. I give an instance. One of the things also that I think is a bane of our community that we need to work on is having to have businesses or people support one another.
mm,
There's always been this issue of you know believing that maybe uh, what we have is less than, is not the best, it's not the
mm,
superior quality. But I don't agree that is the case. It's a two-way street anyway, because even the business owners as well, the African business owners, they need to make sure that their game is up there, that they
mm,
can hold their own against any other business in their industry. You got to show up on time. You don't do, African time, if you like. You don't give somebody an appointment and then you run late and all of that. You got to make sure your service, customer service, everything is top notch. Then people will gravitate to you. And
mm,
also, I want to let people know that they should not set up a business only for their community. Don't just set up a business and say, well, I'm just setting this up for having just the African community in mind. That would be a big mistake because one, we're not big enough. You're restricting yourself. You should set up a business, period. Set up a business, period, and then you got to do your marketing to cut across. Of course, you could have certain niche or certain specialty products or services that could target or cater to certain community. But that
mm,
shouldn't be your main focus because we don't have that numbers yet. In America, I know there is some statistics also. People need to understand what it means to have money, I mean, the currency. The reason we
mhm,
call money currency is because it circulates. But we find that because we don't really engage and patronize each other, money does not really circulate within our community that much. In America, I know that in the Asian community, it sort of takes maybe a dollar will go maybe about 28 days. In the Hispanic community, maybe about 17 days. I think in the African American community, $1 only stays for about 6 hours or 7 hours. So because it doesn't circulate, and there's something in that. There's something in that because there is a multiplier effect of having money in your community that really increases the value and the worth of that people. So we need to be conscious of how money works. When you know how money works, the multiplier effect and what it means, not only for us but for the next generation. I think more and more people will know that what they do, you know, uh, does not just affect them; it affects the larger community. It affects even the generations to come. We need to have a multi-generational mindset in the way
Mm.
we do things.
Well, you're talking about generation there. What is the best way, from your perspective, to, I suppose, provide business education in our communities? Because knowledge and education is very important in this sort of thing. The education system doesn't necessarily really encourage people to go into business. They prepare people to hold jobs and all that sort of thing. But how do we provide education in our communities, not just for the current generation, but for future generation, to encourage our young Africans or our children to go into business and take the advantage of the opportunities available in Australia?
Yes, that's a good one because I believe that knowledge is the new currency. Knowledge is the new currency. You cannot, what you know determines what you become. I believe, so we cannot overstate the need for ongoing personal development and education, especially in the area of business and wealth creation and all of that. That's what is going to get us into the space where we need to be, where we can be a people to be to have more buying power, even into the system and the polity of the state and the nation as well.
Mm,
So one of the things we can do is having seminars, business seminars, and entrepreneurship kind of shows. Even your program, what you're doing, it's a good thing to sensitize people of the
mm,
advantage of running good and profitable businesses and of doing it well. I think the key is doing it well. It doesn't
mm,
matter if you start and then you take some baby step. That's fine. Many years ago, when we're talking about, let's take the case of China, for instance. Many years
mm,
ago, we used to say, look, anything that is from that side, people don't want to touch it because they were perfecting their crafts, you
mm-hmm.
know, but they did not allow that to deter them. Now the world bows down to that, the
To
economic
China.
power of that.
Mm-hmm.
Almost everything you can look at is made in China, and the quality has really improved. It's very good now. You can only compare with the best, some of the best in the world as well. So it's not how you start, it's how you finish that really matters. So we need to, cut ourselves some slack as well, give ourselves some grace as we take baby steps, but the motive is got to be right. You got to, want to be a person of excellence and know
Mm,
that what you do today affects everyone, not just you, affects the next generation and also affects your people and your community. So the more we begin to talk about this and the value of having businesses, what businesses can allow you to do, the independence and freedom it can create and lift people, and because we all want the same thing in life, we all want that self-actualization. We all want to be able to give back. We all want to be able to contribute to things that we feel strongly about. But as long as we continue to be on the low rung of the pecking order, it's going to take some miracle for that to happen. We can pray all we like, we can do all these things, but if we don't really do the works and do exactly what we need to do and be able to compete with the best in the world, then
mm.
we're not giving ourselves the best chance to succeed. So education is key. Having seminars and mentorship is another thing. Mentorship one-on-one, being able to give ourselves opportunities and chance to be able to flourish and glean and learn, knowing that what you do for one, you're doing for all. You're doing for yourself as well.
But talking of mentorship, I certainly agree that is very important. And we actually come from a collective, mindset background where
Yeah.
we help each other a lot in Africa. But when people get here, we seem to lose that. Even the mentorship. I know in Nigeria there is a system I read somewhere where someone would work with another person, and then after 20, 30 years, they would, give money to that person to go and launch their own business. So they would have mentored that person for quite a long period
Absolutely.
of time. You probably certainly know more about that than I do. But all that is not happening here. Why do we seem to be having so much trouble working together here in all aspects? Whether it's community, whether it's business, or anything. What do you think is the problem?
I think it comes down to, and let me say also that I know your reference you're making is to there's a part, the eastern part of Nigeria, they're really good at that. Somebody starts a business, and the next thing they see it as their duty, it is an obligation to
Mm,
take the younger ones, uh, put them in business, and then set them up, and then
hmm
the cycle continues, and that other person needs to get someone as well, either the cousin or
Yes.
the younger one, and then the cycle continues. It's beautiful, and you see that, and they're really one of the most profitable or flourishing business people in
Mm,
that side. They're good, and that's because of the mentorship thing. But the reason we're not able to get it right here, I think, is still the same mindset thing that most of us migrated here, not just physically, we also migrated with our mindset because we believe that if you bring somebody in, then maybe they might want to second guess you, or maybe they might want to do you wrong one way or the other.
mm,
So is that element of trust, which is sometimes misplaced. Sometimes is the case, but sometimes it's also
hmm
misplaced as well. But I don't think we should not give people the chance just because you believe they're going to do something.
mm.
You don't stop doing good because somebody is done bad to you. So we just got to keep trying. Eventually, you'll find someone that would be able to, get it and run with it, and you'll be proud of that. And that's beginning to happen. I know there's a few cases where people have really gleaned from others, and you don't even have to get them to really. It could be maybe spending time with them. You know,
Mm.
this day it could be on the phone, or it could be just spending some time getting them having some coaching. Some people can mentor from a distance, as a matter of fact. So it really doesn't mean it's having the time of the day, it's
Mm.
having that passion, it's having that heart to be able to support and help and give back to others. I think that's really what matters.
And with the development of technology, as you said, some people can mentor, remotely with all these online video, audio, visual technology. It becomes very easy. You don't have to travel. You can have an hour or half an hour conversation, and obviously meeting personally is still the best. But where that is not possible, there are technologies out there. So shall we learn to use the tools that we have and utilize the resources that we have in the community? Maybe one thing else is people don't seem to. That's my observation here, and I would like to have your perspective on that. People here don't seem to see the value of other people. When somebody may be doing very well and this person has a lot of skills, I've seen that in community settings where someone is really doing well. They're the person who should be leading the community because of the number of things that they are able to produce. But those who are being led want to undermine, even though they don't have the skills to step up and help.
That's so true because we have a microwave kind of mentality. We're not really ready for delayed gratification. We want it now, and we believe that if someone can do it, after all, we're from the same place and all of that, then I can too, which is a very wrong mindset because everyone is a product of their training, their upbringing, and it's all different. You can even come from the
Mm,
same house, it doesn't mean you. So it's all about education and just knowing what it is that you're passionate about, you're gifted in as well, because everyone has got their own lane and sticking to your lane. When we stick to our
mm,
lane, we wouldn't be having a lot of accidents, if you like, on that. So that's also one of the reasons people think, okay, if you can do it, of course I can do it. I've seen that happen a number of times, but eventually, once they don't succeed, then they come back and want to learn. But it's like putting the cart before the horse. They should have come to
mm,
you first. so that they know the ropes, because in every profession, in every trade, in every business, there's always the know-how, and you've got to really be able to know the ropes and know how the industry works, the market intelligence and all of that before you venture into it.
Okay, Bunmi Ajayi, thank you very much for your time to Afroshine Live. It's been 45 minutes already. It goes so fast, and we appreciate you taking the time to answer our questions and share your experience and your insights in business. We hope to have more opportunities to continue to talk to you about this topic in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you to all the viewers. And just to appreciate what you're doing, I think we need to have more and more of this, just to educate our people. And before I go,
Yeah.
I wanted to mention to before coming to this show, I realized that we do have what is called a Black Pages Australia, which is where
Mm-hmm.
businesses is on Instagram. Actually, it's my daughter was actually involved in putting that in place. Black Pages Australia, whereby businesses owned by Africans could be kind of showcased and advertised. Those are some of the things we need to begin to have as well. We need to
Yeah.
have a repository or directory where we can go in and be able to support one another and see who's doing what where. Yeah, so thank you for what you're doing. And yes, I just want to encourage everyone within the community to get behind businesses and people, and let's support each other, because one thing is sure that when someone does not live to their full potential, everyone tends to lose out on that.
Absolutely. There's no better way of ending the show than that. Well, we'll certainly look into potentially having a show where we talk about the Black Pages or any of the platform that can help people to know who's doing what and how they can support them for their services and goods that they're able to deliver. All right. Have a good night, and we'll talk to you next time. And
Thank you, Clive.
I
Thank
want
you.
to
Thank
say
you for
also
having me.
thank you to all of our viewers, and we encourage you to share the video. And also, if you have a skill or you have an area of interest that you would like to be able to share with the rest of the community, this platform is available. You may be a professional in some area, or you may have an interest, a passion, a hobby that other will be interested to know, and that may help to add value into the community. Feel free to contact us, and we'll be more than happy to have you on Afroshine Live. It's all about shining the light on African Australians and what we are doing and how we're contributing to the society and how we're making a difference in our own lives and the lives of others. Until next time, stay blessed. Thank you very much.